A warm good morning to all. Walk with the Scholar WWS of Sree College, Kalady welcomes you all to the webinar Step by Step. I am Dr. Mini KD, the coordinator of WWS. Let me introduce our speaker, Mr. Amal Anup. Amal, after completing his BSc and MSc in psychology from UC College, Alua, pursued post-degree diploma in human resource management from University of Capilano, Canada. He won several accolades including Best Outgoing All-Rounder at his school and college level. He was the first international exchange student from UC College to do a semester in the International Christian University, Japan. He was chosen as the Madhrubhumi Gem of Seed Award in the year 2013. He is a rank holder in MSc Psychology, currently working as a HR assistant in the University of Capilano, North Vancouver, Canada. On behalf of WWS of Sree College, Kalady, I wholeheartedly welcome you, Amal, for the session. Over to Amal. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. This is Amal here. I'm probably going to give about 2 minutes before I start the presentation. It's because I'm just waiting for a few more people because I can see about a couple of participants joining. So I'm just giving them 2 minutes to join, and after which we'll be starting the presentation. Yeah, I hope there's an increase in participants, so I'm just waiting for them. For all the people who've joined this webinar, thank you so much for joining. We're just waiting for a couple of people more, and we'll just start. I know it's the lockdown, the COVID situation has kind of relaxed a bit, and hope you all are staying safe. Feel free to interact using the live chat that you can see. I'll be giving the instructions later, but feel free to ask any questions if you have before starting the presentation. I hope you can see me clearly, you can hear me clearly. All right. Okay, so let's start the presentation right now. So before I start the formal presentation, I would like to invite another person to this webinar here. Now, he is here to explain a few things that you might be aware of, but still, it's a reminder that I think is very, 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 very important at this point of our lives. So I'm inviting my duo right here. Hello, sir. Hi. So he is here to provide you with some information that is really, really important at this point of time. I know the lockdown has relaxed a bit, but always make sure that you wear a face mask when you are going out, and make sure that you cover your nose and your mouth at any point of time if you're going out, all right? And always maintain social distancing. That's about 6 feet to be safe. And always, always, always sanitize your hand at any time you're out in the public place and coming back home. And that way, you can do your part in preventing COVID and preventing the spread of it. I know the lockdown has relaxed a bit, but make sure that you do it responsibly. Thank you so much for coming here. And now let us start the presentation. All right. Now, step by step. What does that mean, actually? So when it comes to career, when it comes to future, I believe that step by step would be the ideal term to use. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I want this to be an interactive session, and for that, let me just give you one important instruction. I will be, giving a certain time after the main presentation, especially for interaction. So if you have any questions or suggestions or criticisms, like anything it might be, always make sure that you mention that in the live chat. So if you're seeing the video, you will have a live chat right here. And make sure that you pop in your questions, and I'll try my level best to answer those questions. So in order to make this really, really interactive, make sure that you put your questions in the live chat box right here. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and start the presentation. All right. Cool. Just give me 1 second. Yep. Presentation is up here. All right. So step by step. So in this session, I will be covering some important topics such as, how to understand yourself, how to find the right job for you, how to adapt to the new workplace, what to expect at a workplace, and then moving on to the interactive session, which is the most important part, if you ask me. Now, all these things are really, really important, but then let me just cover these portions from the perspective of a person who has just started working. Now, that is a difference. I'm not here to explain you a lot of theoretical aspects or academic points in this presentation. Rather, I would like to focus on the practical aspects of, passing from, a graduate school or postgraduate degree, and then you start to work. What are the expectations? So think of me as explaining this from the perspective of a recent graduate. In that way, it's much more easier for us to relate. All right? I hope you understand my vision and the perspective is clear. All right. So without further delay, now, this is something that is really interesting, but at the same time, it's alarming. So this is one of the reports that I pulled from March 21st of 2019, which is a relatively recent report from the India Today news. So over 80% of Indian engineers are unemployable. What does that indicate? Does that show that only 20% of them are really good at what they do? Well, there is another interpretation for these figures. Those 80% of engineers, it doesn't mean that they're not worthy of what they do. Those 80% of engineers were supposed to be artists, musicians, dancers, maybe supposed to go to the medical field or, things like that, psychologists. So the main problem that our country faces right now is educated unemployment, right? So the unemployment of the educated students. So how can we overcome this fault? Well, if you blame it on the society, the culture, or whatever, you'll reach nowhere. So what can we do as students to overcome this hindrance? That's exactly what I'm talking about here. So how do I prepare for a good future, for a future job? There are a few things which we fail to understand. The first thing is, what am I? What are my strengths? That's the first and important question. Let me just narrate a story. In 2013, as soon as I completed my final exam, I guess it was economics and commerce. I was really bad at math. I was really bad at, physics or chemistry, but I loved taking commerce. But my parents did not pressurize me to take a specific stream, or they didn't want me to be an engineer or a doctor or things like that. So I had no pressures, but it actually came at a cost. It was my responsibility to choose my career and reach my job that I wanted to take. It was my responsibility, right? So I had to do a lot of things. I was really confused. I even wrote an examination for BCA, which is Bachelor of Computer Applications. Crazy, right? So I honestly didn't know where should I head to. But then I did a couple of aptitude tests. I did EQ tests, IQ tests, and finally it took me to a stream which I really wanted to go, but I hadn't even thought about it. It was psychology. I did my undergrads in psychology, master's in psychology, and then did HR, which I think it's my interest area. So that's how it is. So always make sure that you do an aptitude test, EQ and IQ test, which is available freely online. You don't actually have to go to a specific person to do that. But always make sure that you understand your strengths and you understand your weaknesses. That is so important. It is very important to understand your weaknesses. There is nothing wrong in it. All right, so how do I prepare for the jobs? Always make sure that you do a couple of internships and volunteering as well. Some people really think that, helping your parents or doing household chores is not volunteering. Well, that exactly is the intention of volunteering. It is any sort of work experience, right? So If you assist your parents in doing a simple task like, doing an Excel sheet, compiling a data, or even, helping them prepare a PowerPoint presentation, which helps them in their work, it's kind of a volunteering which we fail to recognize, right? So those things are really, really underrated, that you do not recognize what its implications are in the corporate world. You totally underestimate the power of helping your parents prepare a slideshow or a spreadsheet. Those are the basic stuff that believe it or not, the corporates are finding that they're lacking in the newer workforce in India, and the millennials, of course. So always try to do some internships and volunteering. Don't expect anything in return. Don't expect what is my monetary benefit from it. And always make sure that you make use of the resources. Like if you're looking for a paid internship or free internships, Internshala is a really, really nice place to go. Make sure that you increase your work experience and your practical, skills before you even look for a job. Now, let me just take you to a quick quiz. All right? Now, I will show a few logos. I don't want you to respond, but then I'm assuming that you say it at least to yourself. All right. Do you recognize this logo? Of course, the obvious answer, yes, right? I'm not expecting anyone to be online at this point of time. Not if it's too boring, the class that I'm taking, but still. Well, way more, familiar, right? This, newer, but I guess most of the newer generation are on this, right? But what about this? Well, this guy right here could change your world, could change the opportunities, could change your life forever. But how many of Indian students have really installed this application in their mobile phones? It's funny, but it's important to know. Because all these are social media websites. These all help in networking. But the real networking site that actually gives you a lot of opportunities to work, to meet with corporate companies and managers and even presidents. We are not actually fully utilizing the potential of an app like LinkedIn or a website like LinkedIn. Now, this is LinkedIn for people who don't know. The first and foremost thing that you should do today is, I know that it's lockdown. There is no excuse that you have to study, you have to do project work or anything. Make sure that you install this app and prepare a resume and cover letter right away. That is really, really important. This will help you. This can be a life changer in today's world. All right, moving on. So these are the stuff that I've mentioned before, but just reinforcing it once again. To find the right job, the first thing to do is do an aptitude test. Whether am I capable of doing the job? Or am I the right person to do the job? Or is that the right, specific department or, stuff like that. So do an aptitude test. Always check whether is that meant for me. The third thing is read the job description carefully. Now, this is important. Anytime when you see a title, it doesn't mean that the job actually means what you think it is. All right? So always make sure that you read the job description clearly and, make sure that what is expected from the job is exactly what you intend to do in your future. So do that. The fourth thing is to do your part of research about the company. What if the company, there's a huge loss for the company in their, global operations? You shouldn't be. So even though the company might be huge, that wouldn't be the right company at this point of time, right? It might run into losses. It might, even resort to layoffs, temporary layoffs, or things like that. So make sure that you have a clear idea about the company. The second last point I've mentioned is prepare a good resume and a good cover letter and create a LinkedIn profile. And make sure that you don't do this in your resume. I hope you understand this character. Never, ever, ever, ever do anything to create an artificial or a fake image about yourself on your resume. Be yourself, be authentic, write all the things that you've done, and do not boast of anything that you have not done, because that fake image can tarnish your whole image as an employee, and that increases your expectations. We don't want to do that, right? So stay away from it. Okay, now let's go on. Okay, now you've got the job. What next? Well, getting job is not everything. I know many people who've thought that when we are at the 10th grade, we thought, oh right, 10th grade is the most, important part of our lives, and it's kind of, it's the most important turning point. But then that thing changed when you reach 11th grade. At 11th grade, you know that whatever you've learned from 1st to 10th grade was nothing when you compare that with the 11th grade, right? When you completed 12th, you thought that was the biggest thing. No. And then it increases and increases and increases. You do your degree, you do your master's, and then you got the job. Is that everything? No. Then there are challenges ahead. Now, these 3 points, I got this from a recent studies according, these studies were done among the new employees in Indian corporate firms. So what are the 3 important things that they mentioned in different studies? One was excessive workload. Second is gap in soft skills. And third, stress. Of course, you know about it. Stress is something that you even have as a student, right? And student stress is another story, but I'm not going into that. So excessive workload, gap in soft skills, and stress. Really, really, really important, right? Let's go on. Let's study each and everything kind of in detail. What to do if you think your workload is excessive? I think this is something which I personally didn't do when I was doing my, undergrads or postgrads. I was not organized much. I'm not saying that I was too disorganized, but I was not really organized. Now, what are the skills that you need to inculcate to make sure that you stay organized? Well, have you heard of an app called Outlook? Well, you should have heard about Word, PowerPoint, Excel, but not many. We've seen Outlook, but then don't know the potential of this app called Outlook and Excel, of course. Outlook and Excel, mark these words, are the most important applications. No matter you learn or not learn other applications, make sure that you learn Outlook and Excel. There's thousands and thousands of videos out there on YouTube that you could just refer to and go through to understand the potential of Outlook and Excel. Make sure that you spend some time to understand its potential and learn at least the basic things about it. It can change your life forever. So in order to stay organized, always make sure that you learn Outlook and Excel. Lifesaver, life changer. Okay. Second thing is change in attitude. Now, when you start working, don't think that work is easy-weasy. No work is, as such, kind of easy to do, or there's no work in this whole world that is that is easier than another one. Some people, I've heard some people saying that, okay, yeah, this guy doesn't work so much, but he earns so much, and this work is harder than yours. Well, I think it's a change of perspective. Every work is hard and every work is easy in its own terms. But always, that change in attitude is something that you can really inculcate. Always think about the positive aspects. No job is easy. At any point of time when you're out there, it's just like sailing in a sea. You can always expect the unexpected things to happen. So always change that attitude. Always keep it positive. And think about all the positive things. Say if you're working like 7 hours. And think about the things that you can do at work. If you feel that the work is monotonous, just take a small break. That's my third point. Just hear to music, listen to music, see some videos and come back. That is important. Come back to work. And then communicate properly. So if you think the work is excessive, always make sure that you communicate this properly. Don't be aggressive. Don't think that, it might affect my reputation. It might affect my image. Always communicate properly with your supervisor, and that makes a huge difference in it. I hope these points are clear. These are not new points, but I think I wanted to reinforce these aspects because you are the ones who will be starting to work in a couple of years, or maybe a year or a year and a half. Now, the next thing is gap in soft skills. Now, we all know about hard skills. We Indians especially are really good at hard skills. Those are the specific teachable abilities like, math, software programs, all those things, writing skills and reading abilities and everything. That's one of the reasons why we excel in shows like, Spelling Bee, right? But there are skills like soft skills. These are less tangible and harder to quantify, such as presentation skills, like, leadership skills, emotional quotient, and things like that. So one of the most important things that we need to work on is to improve our soft skills. Now, this is something that Indian students lack a lot. So it does affect our employability. Now, what can we do to improve these skills? Now, every single aspect of it is so very important. So what are we lacking right here? Critical thinking and problem solving is one huge task. Attention to detail, another thing. Communication, emotional quotient, and teamwork. Our society is more kind of a collectivistic society where we do not, kind of learn to do things by ourselves. We are kind of dependent on people. Now, what should we do to enhance our independent working skills or improve teamwork? It is really, really, really important. So starting from college, I guess this is the right time for you to delegate tasks. So that is one of the important things that would be helpful to all the students out there. Delegate tasks. Say if you are doing a presentation or an assignment or project, do correct delegation. Because one thing that I've seen in when I was a student is some people do all the tasks, all right? And a few people just sit there idly and just wait for them to finish the task and finally put their name on the project or on the presentation, which I think is really bad. In that way, the only person who's gaining from such group work is the only person who's doing the job. Am I right or not? You don't realize that simple task of being lazy and delegating that to, not delegating, actually putting the load on someone else actually makes him or her stronger and makes you incompetent to the world out there, because it's you who is becoming unemployable, not them. So always make sure that you do that. And attention to detail. Be mindful of what you're doing, right? Be mindful of what we're doing. And if you think you're so done for the day, if you have a feeling that you're so stressed out, I guess I have an example right here. So if you really feel that you're stressed, like this guy right here, I think you should stop working. This person right here is so stressed that he is not in the right mood to work, right? So better not. Don't work. So take your break at this point of time and then do your job after that break. So attention to detail does get affected if you are working under stress, and you will not be able to think critically or do any sorts of problem solving if you are not mentally stable. All right? So what do we do to improve soft skills? Now, this is an important thing. The first is develop a learning mindset. Now, people like us, we have a thought behind our mind that once I've done with my master's or once I've done with my MPhil or PhD, there is nothing much to learn. But I guess the COVID situation has actually changed the perspective. I've known a lot of people who've learned to cook, who've learned to cut their hair, like what I did. I cut my own hair. I didn't even think that I would be able to do it before COVID. But then I realized that I was able to do it, and it was okay. I think it's okay right now. So that is exactly what you say about a learning mindset. I'm not saying that I had a huge learning mindset, but if you think that is really necessary, then you end up learning it. But what I am asking you or suggesting that you do is always keep the developing, a learning mindset. Subscribe to the channels in YouTube that teaches you new things. Maybe, if there's something that you're lacking as presentation skills, add those things. There are people who teach how to do public speaking, how to write good papers or projects or assignments. If you're bad at cooking, then subscribe to those channels. And by subscribing, the best thing that you're doing is anytime that you log onto YouTube, you might be knowing this, the recommended videos will show something for you to learn. This is a huge opportunity for you to learn. Another important resource to do that is LinkedIn Learning. LinkedIn Learning is an amazing resource for you to learn new things. So is Udemy, and so is like Unacademy, things like that. So make use of the online resources, first the free ones, and then if you think that is really worth it, just go for the paid ones, and make sure that you keep up the learning mindset. I guess that is really, 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 really important. If you have that in your mind, then always that's the best thing that you can do to yourself. It can even change your personality. Second is always perform a self-reflection. Right now, after this presentation, I don't know how many of you will do it, but if at least one or two people can do it, I guess that's a huge thing. Do a bit of self-reflection. What is self-reflection? Just sit and think of what are my skills and what am I lacking? What do I really want to learn? What are the things that I want to achieve? Just think of it. So for many people, if you ask a small child, like say about like 5 years old or like 6 years old, you ask him or her or them to say, what is your ambition? You might hear some really, really weird answers, like, say, I want to become a driver. I want to become a policeman. I want to become a doctor. But have you asked the same question to yourself at your 10th grade? Of course, yes. And then what about when you reach the 12th grade? It changes, right? When you reach college, it changes a lot more. The main problem that you can see here is we become less creative as we are, progressing in our career, which is the dumbest thing that we are doing to ourselves. We were so creative when we were 5 years old because we are not influenced by the societal pressures, your, academic workloads or things like that. But I want to, the only suggestion that I'm giving you is that if you can be as creative as you were in your at 5 years of your age, then that's the biggest blessing. That really helps you to grow in your career. So always do the self-reflection. Just think, ask this question to yourself. What do I want to become? What do I want to do in my life? And that really reflects where you get out there. So one of the reasons why I wanted to stick on to this topic is because you are the ones who are about to enter the workforce in 1 year or maybe 2 years or maybe 3 years. And if you have this in your mind, at least 5 people who have listened to this, if they have it in their mind and they can do these, these self-checks or whatever, self-monitoring things, that can make a huge difference in our total workforce. And that will hugely influence the whole total workforce of India as such. The third point is what I've mentioned before. Always expand your knowledge and take online classes. No matter if you've done your postdoctoral degree or you've had a very eventful life. You've taught thousands of people. You've taken like PhD or maybe the postdoctoral or done research. There's always a potential for you to learn something new every single day. So make that a practice. Just learn new stuff. And the other thing is practice, and practice. Especially with communication skills or presentation skills. All you need to do is practice, and practice. I've mentioned that change in mindset. So developing a learning mindset is done. But what do I do to maintain that? I need to practice, and practice. How else do you expect to make a change in yourself if you do not practice, right? So make sure that you do your part really well. Do your research, do everything. But the most important thing is practice, and practice. So that's really important. I'll tell you a story. So how did I learn communicative English? So when you're in, any schools like today, I guess they're teaching really good English, the theoretical aspects, grammar or whatever. I've heard that we do lack some writing skills. You know where the problem lies is, I guess it's not with the generation as such, but the education system has got to do its own part in it. We stay away from the functional aspects of the subjects that we learn. That's exactly what I learned. Say Hindi. I had taken Hindi language ever since my 2nd grade in school, and then I was learning it until 8th standard. I learned about 6 years, but believe me, I cannot speak Hindi. I do understand a bit, but that is not the kind of education that you really want, right? But there are friends of mine who know it really, really, really well. You know what was the difference? They used to watch Hindi movies, they used to listen to Hindi songs, and their communication skills increased drastically. That was my fault. I didn't take an effort to listen to Hindi music or Hindi films, and it didn't improve. The same thing goes with English films as well. Learning something from the books takes you to the theoretical aspects of it, and it is really, really important. But it is more important to connect the theory with something that is of use in your practical day-to-day life. So unless this link has been established, it always stays as two different things. There's theory, and practice stays way away from it. Just like we do social distancing, these two are not together. So always do this practice. And so coming back to the story, so what I did to improve my communication skills is that when I was taking bath, or maybe when I was staying at home by myself, I used to speak to myself. I used to talk to myself. I created artificial scenarios, like I was attending a job interview, or maybe I was being interviewed, like I was a celebrity. I assumed these characters and spoke in English. At first, you're making dumb mistakes. If you're making really, really, really bad mistakes, that doesn't mean that you're really bad at the language. It's just because you're learning a new language. One thing that I realized when I came to a country like Canada is that they respect the effort that you put in. They respect even the minutest the effort that you take to improve something. They totally respect the factor that I am coming from a place where English is not the native language. They respect it. And once you're here, you speak any sorts of English. People here really, really, really supports you to improve your skills. They say, it's okay, you're speaking great English. This sort of a compliment is something that you did not receive in a place where I was coming from, where people would be just, would hate to speak in English just because of the guilt feeling that, oh my God, I can't speak English well, right? So coming back to the point again, practice, practice, and practice. Don't worry about any person out there. They won't judge you. If you are out there waiting for, to reach that level of perfection to speak English to the public, you're not going to speak English in your whole life. And speaking English doesn't make you superior than a person who doesn't speak English. That's another point. Just stick on with your skills. I'm just exemplifying that as language, any language that may that be. So let me make this very clear. Practice is really important, and make sure that you do it yourself and improve your skills. Don't, just wait the society to promote you or, stop judging you so that you can improve the skills. So, all right, a few things there. Now, the next thing is stress. I've actually mentioned a few things before, and it again takes me to the whole concept of stress again. Because since I've mentioned a few things, I would like to add a few things here as well. So meet this guy right here. So maybe you can name him any name. Anything. All right, now what this guy is doing is he's frustrated with the work, and he's stressed. He is doing multitasking, but he's not reaching anywhere. He's staying back at work until like 8 p.m., 9 p.m. every day, but he is not being productive. But on the other hand, there's another person who is not as stressed as him, but he's doing things really, really, really well. Do you know where that makes the difference? The important thing in managing stress is to realize what you're capable of doing every day. Staying organized. Really, really, really important. Now, what are the important aspects that affects our levels of stress? One is low salaries, of course, we can't do anything about it. Second is excessive workloads. We have mentioned this before. Few opportunities for growth and advancement, work that isn't engaging or challenging, lack of social support, things like that. So these are all external factors, right? So when you have a feeling that, oh my God, I'm not able to do anything in my work, I am so stressed, I hate my job, that is the point where you experience all these things. So to my friends out there who will be joining the workforce and who will be facing this thing in the future, don't expect that it should be, well, I wish you the best. I wish you a career where you do not have to experience all this. But expect the worst, right? So if you're prepared for the worst, then you don't actually have to worry about, having all the good things, right? So what can you do about this? What can you do about this? Well, there are a lot of things you wouldn't believe. You can do a lot of things which are in your control to regulate your stress. First thing is that to understand your stressors. You should understand your stressors. Do you think this point is clear? Because it is really, really, really important that you understand what are the things that really stresses you. Sometimes you might feel that, okay, it is the boss who is, creating, who is my stressor. But is that the real scenario? No. It might be a bad day. It might be something that might have affected you on your way to work. Maybe there was a traffic jam. Maybe somebody just slammed their vehicle on the side of your car. And then maybe you've seen videos like this, right? You actually transfer the kind of the stress or the anger or distress on someone else. Maybe you're the boss and you transfer that to someone else, and that becomes a negative cycle, if you ask me. So understand what is the stressor. If you feel really, really, really bad, if you really are sick of whatever that is happening, just give some time for yourself. Just take a deep breath and understand what are your stressors. Second is develop healthy responses. Once you've recognized what your stressors are, then the next thing to do is develop healthy response. Now, what are healthy responses? 1 is doing good exercise. 2, maybe listening to music. 3, maybe just going for a walk. 4, maybe talking to your friend, a person who does not judge you, to express yourself, things like that. So healthy responses can be anything that is doing positive effect on yourself. So always develop those healthy responses, and don't think that gossiping is a healthy response. Don't resort to gossiping. Don't resort to office politics for that. Gossiping doesn't take you anywhere. That is one of the biggest problems that another study showed in India, and this was done by the Harvard Business Review, HBR, in 2017, that said that organizational politics is a huge hindrance for the millennials right now. So don't resort to gossiping. Don't resort to blaming a person if there is that should be momentary. So one of the important tips that I would like to give you is that don't generalize a specific response. Say if you're new to work, you're meeting your manager, and then you're going to your workplace, and there you meet your colleagues or people who've been working there for many years or maybe a couple of years. They say that, oh, this manager, this guy, he is so bad. You know what? He's so stupid. He just blames us for anything. So on your first day, this is the response that you get from your co-workers. So what do you think? Then you will have an image of a really bad person. You see a really bad person in your manager in the first day. But is that the case? My suggestion to you is just take that as an information and you be yourself. You be the person who you are. That is in line with the personality. See the manager as a new person and interact him in the genuine manner, him or her or them. All right? So that changes a lot of things. I don't believe that any person is bad or any person is good by himself. Every person has his own positives and negatives. Maybe these co-workers haven't realized what the manager or the actual personality of the manager is. So in that cases, always cut that out. Just take that as an information. Just cut that out. And then be yourself, be genuine, and express yourself. It will change your perspective. I do not believe that some person should be angry to you and some person is really, really bad. No, every person is good. It's just their pressures, it's just the momentary aspects that might cause them to behave in a certain manner. You understand this, you keep this in your mind, and this makes a lot of difference in your career. Establish boundaries. That's exactly what I've mentioned before. So what to express, what not to, what to tell to a certain person, what not to. Establish that. And talk to your supervisor. If you really feel that, oh my God, I'm so stressed out, just talk to your supervisor. You know what's the biggest problem? You have a honeymoon period in your workplace as well. So at that point of time, you kind of take all the job that your manager is giving and you say nothing. You say, oh, sir, I can do it. Oh, yeah, I can do it. Now, finally, what actually it takes you there is that this workload increases and increases, and that becomes your standard. Don't take anything to create a positive image, as I've mentioned before. Just take what you're capable of doing in the first place. And then when you're really stressed, talk to your manager or your supervisor. Just say, I think it's a bit too much for me, and could you please help me do that? And there is a way to tell this. Don't say that, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. You're fired. Or that creates a negative impact in your manager. But at the same time, don't say, don't hesitate to say, sir, I think the workload is no. Be assertive. You don't have to say the extremes. Be assertive, sir. Very pleasantly, you be very pleasant and say to the point that, sir, I think the workload that you gave me, it's a bit too hard for me to do at this point of time. Could you please help me sort this out? That makes a lot of difference. Just try doing it. Another thing is that take time to relax. As I've mentioned before, listen to music. Just go out, play games or whatever. Maybe you won't be able to take a break between your work, go out and play, or maybe find something that helps you to relax. And make sure that you don't spend this time on Facebook. You go through all the political posts and about the gossips and about all those fake news, and then you become more stressed. And then this becomes another vicious circle. So better not to. During work, do not actually say on Facebook if you are that kind of a person who may get too kind of stressed by all these news that you that you see on Facebook. Then you reach a state of unrest, and that gets translated to negative performance at work. So maybe Instagram, which I feel is kind of the fantasy world of people. Maybe that shows the image that people want others to see, right? That's exactly what Instagram is, I think so. So maybe spend some time that actually helps you to relax. That is really important. And maybe if you're into meditation, definitely go ahead with it. It's proven to be effective. Another aspect to that presentation is the interactive session, which I think is really, really important. Now that I've come to about 45% of the presentation, now it is time for us to interact. So we have about 18 minutes to interact. So if you have any questions or any suggestions, please do ask. We shall discuss. One of the funniest things that I noted when I was started this presentation is that the time when people were logging in, it was really interesting to see. So to be honest, I'm that kind of a person. So Indians are mostly on time, exactly on time, or maybe a bit late to join, right? So not before time. So I was thinking of a time when I was an exchange student in Japan, where they are there at least 5 to 10 minutes before the whole presentation or class, or maybe a flight or whatever. I've never seen people being so respectful of time back there. So that is one of the important skills that I would like to say. I myself was really, really bad at keeping time, to be honest with you. So one of the important things that I learned is that rather than being on time, it's much better to be just before time. Let's say maybe 3 to 5 minutes before. It should be great. Because you know what? I'll share one experience. So technology right now has made our lives way easier, right? So say for example, for in this case, for this presentation, you were given a link probably 30 or 20 minutes before the presentation, and all you had to do is just click on the link. All right? So it has made our lives very certain that we take that for granted. I should admit that I did that a couple of times. So I thought, I have 5 minutes left. And 3 minutes, it's just 3 hours to us. Exactly, right? So for the 3 minutes is translated. Okay. Right. So I have a question here. So how to judge ourselves or find ourselves we are good at something? That's a very, very important question. So, the first thing is that I think you need to modify the question a bit. Don't judge yourself. You're no one to judge yourself. You don't have to judge, actually, because I totally respect the point. But the second part of the question is more meaningful and really, really important. To find ourselves, we are good at something. Exactly, that's right. So, I was asked by Amarjit. So, Amarjit, so one of the tips that I would give is when you spend some time for yourself, always think about all the positive things that you've done in your life. You know what? These things might seem to be very simple and elementary. People might think that, why does he even have to mention this? We all know this. But if I ask you this simple question, what is your strength and what are your weaknesses? What would be your answer? It's not asked to this person, but to the general public. So that is exactly the point. And maybe, like, if you ask this question, this would be your answer. Like, I'm good at creative writing, I'm good at speaking, I'm good at maybe presentation skills or whatever. But that's not the answer that you expect. You need to be specific. If you're good at creative writing, then what exactly is what you're good at writing? Say, if I'm saying that I'm good at creative writing, or like maybe I'm good at writing, I would say a specific or to the point response would be, I like to write poems. And to be more specific, I like to write poems that are related to a specific thing, maybe nature. And what exactly nature? So that is exactly how you discover what you are good at doing. The same thing goes with the kind of presentations or whatever. So take some time to understand what your real skills are. Just go back and rewind and think about all the things that you've done in your life. Say, for example, think about a time where you were appreciated, where you were so happy. Just realize that. For me, one of the happiest moments were when I, there were lots. But then once I was recognized as say the gem of seed that I received, I was so happy because you put in a lot of effort towards a noble cause and then it gave you the recognition. I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't really expecting it. The same with any of the, when I was selected for, to become an exchange student. That made me really, really happy. Those are the things that you do without really expecting much, but then those things really gives me a lot of happiness, right? So think back, and then it gives you a common point, right? Those recognition, and that is a recognition for the efforts that you've done, right? So then I realize that my work is recognized and my work is meaningful, and then I think about all the good things that I've done. I guess my point is really clear. So once you look back and once you understand what is that makes you happy, then analyze what is the task that you've done, right? Be specific and elaborate on it. It will change your life, I would say. Because at least I'm not talking from the perspective of a teacher, but rather a person who has experienced this. I'm not here to talk theory, right? I hope that was clear. So just give some time for yourself here. And just to be specific, I know that the target audience is from Kerala, especially. So, Malayalam ചോദിച്ചാലും കുഴപ്പമില്ല. Like, it's just because I want to make this an interactive session. So, മലയാളത്തിൽ ചോദ്യം ചോദിച്ചാൽ ഒരു കുഴപ്പമില്ല. കാര്യം നമുക്ക് സംസാരിക്കാനാണ്. ഇപ്പോൾ ഇൻട്രാക്ട് ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടിയിട്ടുള്ള സെഷൻ ആകുമ്പോൾ കൂടുതലും അതായിരിക്കും നല്ലതെന്ന് എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നു. സോ, സാറിനൊന്നും പറയല്ലേ. You're most welcome. So, Amarjit, so what I would recommend is just give some time for yourself. Maybe in the end, just spend some time to recognize what makes you happy. All right. So, yeah, what I was talking before was the time management skills. And so one of the biggest problems that the technology, so I was talking about how we take that for granted, right? So I took that for granted. So one day what happened was I was about to join this meeting and I thought like, I have 3 minutes left. And it became 50 or 40 seconds left. I click on the link and my phone hangs up, right? My phone just hung up on me. So that's the thing of like joining on time, or like, exactly at that point of time, if you're like, doing things, you might, you can't even think of the things that might happen. So always make sure that you're just a bit ahead of time, so that it's much more easier, because technology can shut up, like, kind of hang up on us at any point of time. It can, maybe your laptop runs out of power, or maybe your internet connection is weak, things like that. So always expect. So just join any presentation or anything at least 5 minutes before. That makes a lot of difference. So that's another thing. And any more questions, or maybe we have like 10 minutes left, so if you have any questions, definitely ask. Perfect. So, Abhay, how to speak English? So I'll split that question. So how to speak English confidently can be split into two. One is how to speak English. Second is speaking confidently. So confidence is a personality trait. Speaking English is a skill. I hope you understand. So it's actually a combination of a hard skill and a soft skill. So to speak English is just having, so without the theory or without the hard skills, you won't actually be able to speak confidently. But at the same time, this is something that you need to be aware of. If you're confident, then you can learn any language for that matter. Are you getting my point? So the first thing that you need to do is, so if you want to really speak English, just start watching English movies, or just start reading English newspaper. But I would say, like, listening to English songs and seeing good English movies. Like, you can go to IMDb, and then there are some really, really good movies, like, Oscar award-winning movies, really good movies with stories and meanings. Just go through that movies, and always make sure that you understand where that movie is from. If it's a British movie, then the language that you hear will be British English. If that's an American movie, if that's an Australian movie, the kind of language or the dialect that they use is different. So listen to that. First listen with the subtitles, and then always make sure that you pause at points where you need to learn a specific word, right? Say if, like, say if you heard a word that you don't understand, just pause. Just go take out the dictionary or just Google for the meaning of the word and then resume. So watch with the intention of learning the language rather than understanding the story of just listening. So that is more important. So after you learn, try to speak to yourself, or try to repeat the dialogues to yourself, and with the dialect and everything. Just do it when you're taking bath, or just do it when you're by yourself. Just speak to yourself. Make mistakes. Do that over and over and over again. Always create that sense of confidence. And then that makes a lot of difference. And it's just through practice. So always make sure that you practice really well. I'm going to the next question. Hope that's clear. All right. So how to be more positive all the time? Okay. So positivity it's actually a thought process, right? It's actually a thought process. So it's all about comparing. I'll give you a simple example. When I started, when I had a computer, I know that, way back then, when I was in my 11th grade, all I wanted was a phone, right? And I was so happy when I got my first mobile phone that could do nothing else other than make calls. And maybe the camera was so bad that if you take a picture, it resembles someone in their Aadhaar card, okay? Perfect. Okay, so I'm getting a couple of questions. I'll keep it short. So I was so happy then. But now I complain about a phone which I spend about 80,000 rupees. It's like Note 10 Plus. So the moment you compare with where you came from, where your roots are, and what you had experienced before getting the best of the best, that makes a lot of difference. If you think you're privileged, if you think that you are just, you feel something bad about things, always think about someone who doesn't have it. You will always stay positive. Like, say if you're, I'm not saying that to judge anyone or anything. Say if you had an injury and you can't, kind of write with the right hand of yours. Just think about about a person who doesn't even have both hands and still draws a picture like a Picasso. Just think about it. It's all about the perspective. Once you start to compare your state with some other person who doesn't have the enough things, you will feel that you're privileged. At least you are logged in to YouTube and you can listen to my live lecture. It's a privilege that about 70 to 80% of the people in India cannot. So what is there to not to stay positive, right? Cool. So I'm just moving on to the next question. So is planning an accurate way the things could work out? Okay. Yeah. No. Planning doesn't mean that guarantee that it is success. But planning is one way to make sure that you have done your part, right? So planning is not everything. So we say this thing in Malayalam. It's താൻ പാതി ദൈവം പാതി. ഈ താൻ പാതി മാത്രമാണ് നമ്മൾ ഈ ചെയ്യുന്ന ഓർഗനൈസിങ് പ്ലാനിങ്. നമ്മൾ ഔട്ട്ലുക്ക് എക്സൽ എന്നൊക്കെ പറയുന്നത് ഇറ്റ് ഇസ് ആർ പാർട്ട് ആൻഡ് ദ റെസ്റ്റ് ഇസ് സോ അറ്റ്ലീസ്റ്റ് വി കൻ ബി സർട്ടൻ അബൌട്ട് ആർ പാർട്ട്. And it doesn't even go that way. It might not even go, but it's much more easier for us to troubleshoot, right? So at least you can say that I did my part, but things didn't go as expected, but at least I did my part. So in that way, troubleshooting is much more easier. I hope you got my point. If you have any questions, I'll come to that. Okay, another thing is sir, is there any kind of barrier for Indian students to find job or higher studies after Corona ban? See, it's not about Indian students. It's about any person. So after Corona it's a lot of uncertainty for everyone, even for educated, even for Canadian students or American students or any person for that matter. COVID situation has changed the total scenario of our workplace. It's not about skills. It's not about kind of whatever hard or soft skills that you have. It's about the job availability. But what we can do is to improve our skills. Say if you are confident at doing certain things, make sure that you use this opportunity or this time to work more on the skills that you have not improved so that it increases your opportunities, right? So go through go through LinkedIn and look for the jobs that you really want to pursue, and you might find some gaps in the skills that you have, like say writing skills, speaking skills, or probably about typing speed. Improve that during the COVID situation. Right now, you might not be able to get a job. I'm not giving you a false hope that you will be able to get a job as soon as you pass the skills. No, things are different. But at least you can improve yourself and meet the expectations of the employer so that you can be guaranteed of a job later on. So make use of this time really, really well. I'm going to the next question. I'm very embarrassed to face others and I like confidence. How can I improve my confidence? That is totally fine, my dear person. This person, I would say that's very natural. The confidence that you showed before all these people to put that comment before all these people shows that you are confident. That's the biggest achievement of yours. I mean, I'd clap for that. Because you had the guts to express something before all these people. You know that so many people are watching this, and you said that I'm very embarrassed to face others. I like confidence. You have the confidence within you. The only thing that you need to do is just tune it. Because we might have the skills, but it might not be appropriate to the situation, right? So you have it within you. The only thing to do is there's a process of generalization, as I've mentioned before. Always do not generalize. So according to you, what I felt is that you have generalized a specific thing to a lot of things of your life. In that case, what I feel is that it is specific to certain things. Maybe you're hesitant to speak to a certain person. Maybe you're hesitant to face new people. So think about what is that thing that is blocking you, because I'm pretty sure that you have the confidence within you. If that's a language skills that is preventing you from not expressing yourself, then that is your hindrance. So improve your language. You understand? It's not the confidence. Rather, it is a situation that actually creates that problem, right? If I'm not wrong. So make sure that you understand what is that block that doesn't let you express. You realize that you do a bit of your work, definitely you're good to go. You have the confidence. Don't worry about it. I'm not saying it just like, any motivational speaker who says, yes, you can do it. No. You have the skills. You've showed that skills. The only thing is that remove that block and it'll be free flow. I wish you all the best. Can aptitude tests really help us? When I attend some aptitude tests online, I felt that most of the questions related to a specific job, of course. Okay. What is the intention of any aptitude private test that is given for free? They always want us to take the paid version. All right? I hope that is clear. Because nobody gives a free resource online. So when you actually look for a resource online, make sure that you don't stick on to a specific aptitude test. There are a lot of tests that is published by universities or government agencies. Some of them. I'm not saying that all aptitude tests are published by government agencies, but go through it. Make sure that the source is clear. Don't go to some private companies or corporates who are selling off another product, because there are some tests which at the end of the test would ask you, okay, pay like $10 for getting the full analysis. No, don't fall for it. Don't fall for it. Always take multiple tests. Takes like 4 or 5 tests, and then you might be able to get an idea. Take free personality tests. There are really good personality tests that are free of cost to take. Definitely, that's a great resource. Don't fall for any of these offers. Don't pay. There are a lot of free resources online, and there are great YouTube videos. I'm talking about TED videos. A lot of those things can really change your perspective. See, so those are the things. So I know that there are certain aptitude tests that actually goes to a specific end. Don't go for it. Never go for it. Just go to multiple sources, just say 5 or 6 or 7 sources, and then you'll be able to get an idea. All right? I hope you answered I answered your question. So sure. Is self-motivation important part in our success? Definitely. Who else do you expect to motivate yourself? So what keeps me going? So I'll just narrate my my story here. So when I came to Canada, the first time that I stepped to Canada was in September of 2018. All right. So in 2018, when I came, I was all by myself, and still I'm by myself. So I'm managing things by myself. I'm not sharing a house or things like that. So self-motivation is the only thing that keeps you going. So I know that we are running short of time, so so I'll answer. This would be the last question, and once I answer that, unfortunately, I'll give you my mail ID. So if you have any more questions, you can definitely pop in a mail. So self-motivation, yes, because self-motivation is the only thing that keeps you going. Because when you're motivated, even if you don't have the skills, then you end up doing things. So I think that, like, having a haircut. So I told you that I cut my hair myself, right? So why did I cut my hair? The important thing to note here is that I wanted to be presentable before my company when I have group meetings, right? So that is a motive, right? I could just go without my haircut and nobody would judge you. Nobody would say anything to you. But that's a self kind of appraisal that I do to myself. I realize that in order for me to be, presentable and show the real image of myself, I need to cut my hair. So that was self-motivation. It was not skills. I didn't have the skills. I did not have the skills. I went to YouTube, checked some videos online, and then cut my hair by myself, which turned out to be okay. I would say I would rate this probably 6 on 10, but it served the purpose. It honestly served the purpose, right? So I'm not looking like a caveman at this point of time. So that is the importance of self-motivation. Self-motivation would be the only skill that you require, because that would help you to attain other skills. So even if you don't have creative skills or writing skills or speaking skills or motivation or self-motivation will help you achieve those skills. All right? I hope that was very clear for you. And what I'm going to do is I'm just giving you, just give me 1 second. All right. So what I'm going to do here is I'll mention my ID here, mail ID. So if you have any more questions, I'm free to answer any of this. So that is my mail ID. So if you see the chat, I've mentioned my mail ID here, and if you have, thank you so much. So, it might take some time, but then I'll try my best to answer those questions. And all right, so I thank each and every one of you for being so good. Like, and I know it's COVID. I know that you're all taking care of yourself, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. So I thank Dr. Mini Katie and the principal, Ajit sir, and the Walk with the Scholar program as such, and Sree College Kalady for making this a success. I also would like to thank all my family members and friends out there who really supported me in doing this, and my parents as well. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I'm actually inviting to do the conclusion. Just give me 1 second right here. Thank you so much.
Hello all.
Hello, dear Amal. I am Dr. Manjuti and has served as a walk with a scholar mentor at Sree Sankara College, Kalady. Today we had a very wonderful and very informative session from you, Mr. Amal T. Anup, the dynamic young man from our midst. I am sure this webinar has ignited the young minds to prepare a step-by-step route map towards their career. The students will value such programs much more when they hear it from one whom they identify as one among themselves. Thank you very much, Amal. On behalf of WWS of Sree Shankara College and on behalf of the whole team who are present here today, I extend a heartiest thanks to you. Thank you very much and wish you all the best.
I would like to thank Manju Miss for her kind words. Thank you so much for joining here. Thank you so much, everyone. Hope you take care.